Hi.
Hey,
How are you today, Miss Crystal?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This is Jennifer Joseph with Mississippi State Extension Service of Hancock County, and you are tuned in to another live Q&A session with MEA LCS. And today we are talking about lead, and I have with me Miss Crystal Veazey, and she works with the Mississippi State Department of Health. And if you'll just elaborate on your role there for us, Miss Crystal.
Yes, good afternoon. As Jennifer said, I'm Crystal Veazey. I am the program manager with the Lead Poisoning Prevention and Healthy Homes program with the Department of Health. And some of the services that our program provides is we provide statewide education and outreach, care coordination services to include home visits and environmental investigations, and also referrals.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So, again, we're talking about lead today. And sadly, we didn't get much feedback in regards to lead, at least not what I expected to get back. And we've had our discussions concerning this off of the camera, and hopefully we'll touch on some of those reasons why as we progress into this Q&A. So, just to start the Q&A off, what is lead?
Well, lead is a naturally occurring element that you can find in the soil, water, and rocks. It is a heavy metal, and lead used to be put into products a long time ago, especially into lead-based paint before 1978. Lead was put into these products to make it last longer, to provide rigidity, sturdiness. It's also been put into plastics in the past, there again to provide the rigidity. And it is harmful. It's toxic to both humans and animals.
And also, I recall some studies that we had to do as well, and just becoming knowledgeable concerning lead that it made the paint look even glossier.
Yes.
So it made it attractive, and it was a hazard the entire time. And I think about people who paint, and how they were just exposing themselves to this toxic paint all the time and just were completely unaware. So,
Yes, anybody who might be working with lead paint, on homes built before 1978, as far as remodeling, repainting, they can be getting exposed as well. Um, from the lead dust that's being created or the peeling paint.
Most definitely. I've shared this before. I'm not sure if it was on the Q&A series or just with Healthy Homes, because we touch on lead poisoning in Healthy Homes, but I love antiques. And I had got this beautiful antique bed, and I was just sanding down the paint. And it did not occur to me until I was almost finished that, oh my gosh, I've been sanding this and I haven't had on the first mask, and didn't have on gloves. I just was completely unprotected. But the only thing I could say was I was outdoors. So,
Right.
so hopefully that assisted with me not inhaling too many lead-based chemicals, because it was so old. I'm pretty sure that was lead paint on that bed.
And we see a lot of individuals, especially with the social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, they find those do-it-yourself projects where they get these old windows or door frames and they want to recreate them into something new. And a lot of times those have lead-based paint on them. And you don't want to do any sanding or scraping of that lead paint, because there again, it's going to create a tremendous amount of lead dust, which you can breathe in and then it can get on the surfaces nearby, like the floors. And talking about you said you did it outside. You did the sanding. What about the soil, the grass?
Right. And walking barefoot in the grass afterwards,
Right.
like.
And then tracking that inside your home.
Right. We never know. We
You never
never.
know. And lead is in so many things these
Yes.
days.
So
I mean,
I'm sorry.
but most people only think about lead-based paint, but it's in keys, phone chargers, electrical cords, mini blinds bought before 1997. It can also be in your water. especially if you live in a rural area of the state and you're on well water, or if you live in a home where the pipes were put in, I guess, before 1987. Because after 1987, most of the pipes that were used were PVC pipes, which are plastic pipes. So those can all be sources of lead. Also, jobs and hobbies such as construction, painting, welding, mechanic, places where you might make your own bullets, or we have some of those areas in the state. Also, tire places, people who are changing tires, the tire weights that are on tires have lead in them. So there's a wide array of things that contain lead. And then you have to think about, too, about sometimes food and candies, especially some of the Hispanic foods or candies may have lead in them. And it's the way the food was actually manufactured or processed where they come in contact with the lead. Or it could have been grown in lead-contaminated soil.
There's so many risks there, so many risks, and so many people are just uneducated. You know, your mentioning of the car keys, when I was younger, I had an aunt, and if she saw a baby putting keys in the mouth, she would just get the keys out of the baby's mouth now, you know, and we used to always think that it was because they were dirty, but she was actually doing it because the risk of lead being in those keys, you know,
Right.
and it's just
That's
something
correct.
you never think of. And you see kids today doing the same thing, but everyone thinks it's because of germs, but no, it's
Well,
not.
it's actually twofold. It's germs and because of lead, you know.
That's
And
right.
the keys, they don't even have to put the key in their mouth. As long as they're handling it and getting that lead dust on their hands and then putting their hands in their mouth, they can get exposed.
My goodness. Like, this is just a wealth of information, you know, and I just hope people are, I hope you're tuning in out there. I hope you're listening. Okay, so you went over the common sources. That was actually the next question. What are the common sources of lead? And I think you pretty much covered that. So what are the signs and symptoms of lead poisoning?
Okay. All right. So if you just looking at a child, you would never know they had lead poisoning. The only way to know if a child has lead poisoning is through a blood lead test that can be done at their primary care provider's office. But some of the signs and symptoms can mimic other things. Lead can cause developmental delays, learning problems, hearing problems, speech problems, and all of this would not show up until the child started school. Studies have also been done that have actually shown that children who have ADHD, it could be caused due to the lead that they were exposed to as a younger child. And also, I wanted to mention the fact too about women of childbearing age. If you were exposed to lead as a child and you're pregnant, lead is stored in the bones. And when you're pregnant, your body's looking for all the nutrients that it needs. And so lead could leach out of the bones and cross the placenta, and the baby could be born with an elevated lead level. So lead is very serious. A lot of times people think that lead is something that only occurred in the past. No, we still see cases today. We're always identifying new sources, and really, lead poisoning is preventable.
Most definitely. Okay, so as an expecting mother, what you just said about it possibly being stored in your bones, and that's something that the mother wouldn't even be aware of, correct?
Correct.
Like, even know that, are there tests that could be done for her to know that she had elevated lead levels, or would it even be shown in the blood?
Currently, there are no requirements for a pregnant woman to have a lead test done or to be tested for lead. But if you are concerned about your lead levels and you're pregnant, you can always ask your obstetrician, OBGYN, and let them know that, you're concerned. Maybe you live in an older home. Maybe you have a family member who works with lead and maybe bringing lead dust home on his work clothes and work shoes. And you just want to make sure that you do not have an elevated lead level in order to protect your unborn baby.
Okay. So we talk about the developmental delays that are related to children, to the babies, if they're predisposed to lead. Say an adult or a senior, an older adult, if
Mhm.
they are exposed to the lead, will it impact their health as well?
Yes, lead poisoning in adults can cause hypertension, high blood pressure, hearing loss, infertility, and decreased lifespan. So it is, it can affect adults as well. We mostly see elevated lead levels in adults, especially if they're working in an occupation where they're getting exposed to lead.
Okay.
And I
And
and I know it's a requirement through OSHA that adults working with lead have to have a lead test done.
okay, okay. And one of my main reasons for asking is, thinking of the seniors who live in these older
Mm-hmm.
homes, and especially seniors who are raising grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
or have grandchildren come over often, the potential of exposing them to the lead as well. And as you were stating earlier, the DIYs, like
Mm-hmm.
everyone is renovating these older
Mm-hmm.
homes. They're exposing themselves to lead and they're just not aware.
That's correct. And I will say here, I will mention this, that if there's anybody out there who lives in an older home pre 1978 and you're interested in doing any type of remodeling or renovation, you need to get a certified risk assessor inspector to do that work for you. And those individuals are certified through the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. Because they know the processes and the procedures they have to follow to prevent that lead dust from being spread throughout, the area, in the air, through the soil.
Okay, so you have to have someone who is a specialist in that area if you're dealing with lead, because I don't want someone to think, oh, I'll just hire someone to come on over and they'll take care of this, and they don't have the credentials to support it or the experience,
Mm-hmm.
because then they're putting them at risk as well as their own home and the members of their home at risk too.
Correct. Yes, you definitely want to have somebody who's certified with the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality.
Oh, okay. Good, good. So if you're looking to do any kind of remodeling or any repairs, y'all, don't just do it yourself. Especially if it's an older home, get someone with the right credentials. Don't call Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete may not know what he's doing.
Right. He may create more of a hazard than what was there initially.
So I do recall reading that lead can be found in blinds as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that current or was that something of the past?
Okay. Blinds purchased before 1997 can have lead in them.
Okay.
And I know all those blinds were supposed to be removed and taken off the market, but we still find homes that have those old blinds in them because sometimes, they may still be in the store and the stores are still selling them. Or say an individual moves into a home or an apartment and there's blinds there. Those could actually be older blinds. So it is recommended that if you move into a home or an apartment and there's blinds there, you may want to go ahead and remove those blinds because they could have lead in them. And really, what the issue is when the sun hits those blinds, it causes the lead that's inside the blinds to break down, and it forms lead dust that can be on the slats of the blinds and on the windowsills under the blinds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have say a sofa or a baby bed up close to the windowsill where those blinds are, you could potentially have lead dust that's on that sofa and in that baby bed.
Now, if you're uncertain, if your blinds have them and you just are not financially able to purchase new blinds, would you recommend them using just a wet cloth to wipe the dust from under those areas?
Yes, they can remove those blinds and then wipe down the windowsills or like the sofas with all-purpose cleaner or just soap and water to remove any of that lead dust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so no bleach is required, y'all. You can simply soap and water.
Just soap and water.
Okay, good. That's really good to know. Thank you. Okay, so what services does your program provide to families of children with lead poisoning?
Okay. All right. Say we or we're notified of a child that has an elevated lead level, and say that lead level is 5, and 5 is the reference level that's been set by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. All right. So any lead level of 5 or higher receives some type of services from our program, and that's a venous of 5 or higher, where they draw the blood from the arm. We provide telephone counseling. We provide home visits where we actually go out to the home, and we provide education at the home. We also test surfaces. We have a X-ray fluorescent analyzer, which is used to test for lead in paint and dust. We collect soil samples and water samples. And so once we get the results of these tests back, we notify the homeowner of the results and provide them with information on what they can do to help reduce the child's lead level. And then either the owner of the property or the landlord, if it's a rental property, they receive a copy of that report as well.
Okay, so I know that we've discussed this outside, of course, and I'm sure that if there is anyone who's viewing this and they are concerned that their home has lead in it, and they don't have younger children, so they wouldn't be able to qualify for your program, but they will need assistance with getting that lead out of their home.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first steps that you recommend for them to take?
Okay, so you're saying they have a pre-1978 home. There's no children in the home. All right, and they're concerned. The best thing to do, you can always call and reach out to our office, and we can kind of provide guidance.
Okay.
But there are kits called lead check swabs. Now, they will not tell you how much lead is present, but it will let you know if lead is present or not. And that is a resource that can be gotten at Home Depot or Lowe's. Individuals can purchase those. They might be like between $10 and $15. And they're like little crayons. And they can use these to test surfaces. And if lead is present, it will turn bright red or pink. And then if they use those tests, those lead check swabs, and identify lead-based paint, then I would definitely get in contact with somebody from Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay. I'm sorry, were you going to add something? Okay. Right. So you were getting ready to give us a little bit more. Okay, so how can one protect their child from being exposed to lead?
Okay, so some prevention strategies. What can they do to prevent their child from getting exposed to lead? All right, it's going to be very important, because children love everything they touch ends up in their mouth. So it's going to be very important to make sure their hands are washed before they eat and after they play outside, in case they may have any lead dust on their hands or toys before they can put it in their mouth. If they cannot wash their hands with soap and water, they can always use a baby wipe. It's also very important that children get a diet high in iron, calcium, and vitamin C, and frequent meals throughout the day, because lead is absorbed less on a full stomach. So usually like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks in between is usually what we recommend. If you have an individual who may be working with lead and they're bringing lead dust home on their work clothes and work shoes, it's going to be very important for that individual to remove his work shoes before he goes inside, and to remove and change out of his work clothes before he comes in contact with the small children. Because if dad's been working all day and he comes home, the first thing that child's going to do is come up and want to give dad a hug. And that child's could potentially get lead dust on their hands, and then their hands go right to their mouth. Also, if you have windowsills, if you have peeling paint on your windowsills in your house, you don't want the children to be touching those windowsills and then putting their hands in their mouth. One of the things that we do recommend is that they can wipe down the windowsill with soap and water. And they can also put contact paper or plastic over those windowsills that may have peeling paint, so that the children are not actually coming in contact with that peeling paint and that dust. Also, if you're working with lead, you also have to think about, you're at work, you've been exposed to lead, now you're getting in your car coming home. Okay. So you're going to have a lot of lead dust in your car. And that can be on your car seat. It can be on the floorboards or the carpeted mats. So we recommend that you can either put a washable covering over your seat that can be taken out and washed periodically. And you also want to remove the carpeted floor mats and replace them with some type of vinyl or plastic floor mat that can be taken out and washed off. Because we have ran into cases just with the children are being exposed to lead primarily from that job exposure, occupational exposure.
You know, you made me think of two things. When I first went through the training where I was initially, informed about lead and the prevalence of it, because again, it's just something that is overlooked, but one of the men who were there presenting, he was informing us of one of his colleagues that he had formerly worked with poisoned his daughter. And it was absolutely horrible. Like, he was in construction and he would bring projects home and work on them in the garage. And as he worked on them in the garage, his daughter was there and she was being exposed to all of that dust. While he was filing down projects, she was being exposed to it. And they started to notice that she was having some developmental issues, like some challenges that she hadn't normally, like she didn't have any prior to. And they took the child to the doctor, and come to find out, thank goodness, the doctor knew some of the signs, and he called for a lead test. And if he hadn't called for that lead test, that just would have gone, under the radar. And it makes me, and it's just, oh my goodness, like it just really adds up, because so many physicians really don't think about doing those lead tests anymore in these younger children, unless I know you actually explained to me that there is a program where the physicians are actually still performing those tests in children.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that for us?
Okay. All right. In the state of Mississippi, any child who receives Medicaid benefits, Medicaid eligible child, those children have to have a lead test done at 12 and 24 months of age and between 6 and 72 months if not previously tested. They will usually ask a series of questions like a risk assessment, like do you live in a home built before 1978? Does anybody work with lead? Are you on well water? Those are just some of the questions. And if you answer yes or don't know to any of those questions, that puts you at risk, and they're supposed to do a lead test. And that can start as early as 6 months with the risk questionnaire.
Okay. Well, that's great. That is great. If you are not on Medicaid, you can still request for your doctor to have a lead test done on your child, right?
Yes, you can ask for, if you're concerned, you can always ask the physician about a lead test. And I'm not sure, but the private insurances may be able to do those, but I'm not quite sure about that.
Okay.
But you can always ask. But I know it's a requirement for Medicaid.
Okay, good. That's good to know. So in the event that someone has a well and there are high levels of lead in their well, is there anything that they can do about that issue, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And most of the time when I take water samples from a well, they come back very high with lead. And what we recommend is that they do not use that water for cooking, drinking, or making baby formula. They can either use bottled water or nursery water. But we've also found that the pure water filters, if you use those and you're on well water, it will reduce the amount of lead in your water. And usually it's the brass pump that's used to pump the water up to the surface in the wells that has the lead in it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And whether you're on well water or you're on city or community water, if you think you have a lead and water issue, make sure when you get up in the mornings that after the water's been sitting in the pipe overnight, you don't want to use that water immediately for cooking, drinking, or making baby formula. You want to flush the lines for at least 3 minutes, and then you can use it. But if you're on well water, definitely I would recommend getting a pure water filter. And there again, too, you have to think about the children when they're getting their baths at night or in the morning. Children love to play and splash the water. So if you have any lead in your water and they're splashing that water and they get it in their mouth, that could be a source of lead too.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. So you mentioned that about the brass. Mm-hmm. So I know today that's become a thing because it looks antiquish. Mm-hmm. So people love the brass, sinks, the brass tubs. Mm-hmm. Are those protected from lead, or do they still have sources of lead in them?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out.
Okay. Awesome.
I will definitely find out and see if, because a lot of people collect brass, and mm-hmm. my mom is one of those. So maybe I can test one of her pieces the next time I visit.
That would be very interesting. I would love to know what the results are on that. I would love to know what it comes out as. Okay. And also, we're almost coming to an end with the painting. Mm-hmm. So let's say that window sills or even just a home built before 1978, you know that it has lead-based paint. Is it okay to go over it with a coat of a different paint without getting it handled by a professional, like coming in and removing the lead paint? Okay.
Yes. If you have a pre-1978 home with peeling, chipping, or flaking paint, you can repaint over it. But just remember that when you repaint over it, if it starts to peel, chip, or flake, that new paint, that bottom layer with the lead is going to be exposed again. So, yes, you can paint over it because the paint bought today does not have lead in it. Mm-hmm. And also, if you're concerned, about you've got issues on the outside of your house and you have a porch floor, you can also pressure wash that porch floor off to remove any of the lead dust. And then you can seal it in with like a concrete sealer or some type of sealant, a deck enamel or a deck sealant.
Okay. So I said we were almost done, but it's like once we get to talking, I get more and more questions. But I'm almost finished, I promise.
No, go ahead. I also wanted to add something too, because it's summertime. And what do people like to do in the South during the summer? Is go fishing. They like to hunt. All right, so you have to remember too that those little fishing weights that you put on the bottom of your fishing pole, they are lead. Mm-hmm. That's all it is lead. So children who actually handle these, or they put them on their line and then bite them to close them, they're getting exposed to lead.
Yes.
And we have several, I've received several calls from individuals, and they will take, bullet casings that have been used, mm-hmm. and they restuff them. I don't know what the correct term is, but they will reuse them for hunting. Mm-hmm. And there again, that's lead that they're putting in there. So there's just all kind of, sources of lead that you really don't think about, because lead is not widely talked about. And mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be able to talk with you today, is so we can kind of get more information out about lead and raise people's awareness. Because lead is an issue, it's an important issue, and, it is the number one environmental health problem that is preventable.
It's preventable. See, that's the key word for me, is preventable.
Preventable.
And like you said, we're just not aware. And you think about these family outings, going fishing, going hunting, mm-hmm. spending quality time together, casing shells. Mm-hmm. And you're exposing one another to lead the entire time and just completely unaware of it. Mm-hmm. Completely unaware. So a question that came to mind was, what if someone, a contractor, was looking to cut costs and he ordered paint from overseas? Is he increasing the risk of getting a lead-based paint? Like, do other countries abide by the same policies that we do in regards to lead?
No, and that's a good question, because a lot of the items that you can get from overseas, say from China, China doesn't have any regulations on the amount of lead that can be put into a product. So, several years ago in the news, there was a lot of recalls for toys that had been made in China, that had been found to have lead in them. You also have to think, too, about the toy jewelry that you may be able to get. Little necklaces you get from the Dollar Tree or from the vending machine. Those have lead in them. Mardi Gras beads. And see, all of this is could be made in China because it's cheaper to make, and then they send it over here. We purchase it, and then our children get exposed to lead.
My goodness. It's like one thing after another. It's always like a snowball effect if you don't know better. And that just brings me to the decorative bowls that you see in the Dollar General.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're so pretty, and I really want to eat out of this bowl because it's so pretty. But on the bottom of a bowl, it says, do not eat.
Mm-hmm.
Do not put in a microwave. Do not eat from this bowl. And it could simply be because it actually has lead in that bowl.
Correct. And, a lot of these pretty pottery ceramic bowls that you can purchase, a lot of those, the glaze on those bowls and pots could have lead in them. And if you're eating out of that, especially if you put something hot into that bowl, that lead can leach out of the glaze and get into what you're eating.
Listen, y'all.
You think of the glass pitchers, the beautiful glass pitchers that you have that you like to use on special occasions. If you put something acidic in that lead can leach out and get into what you're drinking.
My goodness. And that makes me wonder now about the beautiful vases that your grandmother used to use, or, on those special occasions that you still do out of tradition.
Yep.
And the whole time you're possibly exposing everyone to
lead.
Yep. Oh my goodness.
And I don't know about you, but I know when I was younger, one of the big things, you were outside playing in the summer. It was hot. You couldn't go inside because you were told to stay outside and play.
Mm-hmm.
You get thirsty, you drink water out of the water hose. And the water hose has lead.
Oh my goodness.
And look, the thing is, okay, so you've been outside playing. It's a hot day. The hose has been laying out in the sun. It's gotten hot. So the lead that's in there in that plastic is now in the water that you're drinking. No wonder it tasted so good.
Oh my goodness. That's right, because it did taste sweeter. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it was sweeter because of the lead that was in the pipe.
Never know, because they say that lead paint chips, when children eat lead paint chips, they are sweet. They taste like candy. So exactly. When a child has one lead paint chip, they just keep eating them because it's like candy.
My mind is blown right now. I'm telling you, wow. Oh my goodness. The water hose. My whole family is exposed to lead. The entire family, because we did just that. Mm-hmm. It's not that we couldn't go out inside. You're just having so much fun outside, and it's so conveniently right there that you'll just drink water straight from the hose.
Right. I remember when you used to turn it on, it'd be hot. You'd wait for the hot water to go away, and then it would be cold, and that's when you drink it.
Right. Maybe it helped us that we let it flush through the pipe for a while before we drank it, though. Yeah. Maybe we weren't too exposed.
Maybe so.
Maybe that saved us. Let's hope so. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Ms. Crystal. This has been a wealth of information. So, in the event that someone has questions concerning this, do you have a contact number, or again, just something that they can reach out to the website just to get more information on it?
Yes, they can call me or call our program at 601-576-7620. Or they can visit the Department of Health's website at healthyms.gov.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Crystal. This could be continued, and hopefully with more people, to join in, because I'm sure everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own experiences. Mm-hmm. And who's to say someone has not been negatively impacted by lead? And are actually aware of it now, so So thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Crystal, and I hope everyone has enjoyed this Q&A as much as I have, because my mind is, I'm still reeling over the water hose.
Well, I really thank you. I thank you for asking me to participate today. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope the information shared has been beneficial and will actually help, one less child from being lead poisoned.
Yes, ma'am. Most definitely. Most definitely. And everyone, thank you so much again for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you all next Thursday. Next Thursday, we'll be joined by Ms. Kim Gowdy and Ms. Kathy Wilson, where we will be discussing activities for children. And since we're going into the summer, what better time to discuss those activities for our children? So you all have a most blessed rest of your day and week. Health State and go Dogs.